today I'm delighted to say that I'm in conversation with Tim Parsons, author of the Paramedic Chris Series. Now, the Paramedic Chris Series is aimed at educating children around the work of the ambulance service. And each story is based on calls which Tim attended in various ambulance crews when he used to serve as a voluntary chaplain to the ambulance service. And Paramedic Chris is based on a real-life paramedic called Chris, of course. And one of Tim's first ever shifts when he first worked for the ambulance service was with Chris, and his life story inspired him to write the Paramedic Chris series. Now, Tim has witnessed how dedicated all the ambulance staff are, and he believes they deserve all the support that they can get. So the Paramedic Chris series is written to help young children gain an insight into some of the things which paramedics do to keep us all safe. So thank you for joining me this evening. It's lovely to meet you.
And you too, you too.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey and how did you come to write your books? What led up to this moment?
Yeah, so I previously, before I was in the ambulance service, I served a dementia care home in Gravesend as a chaplain, and I came across a vacancy for a chaplain in the ambulance service for South East Coast Ambulance Service, and I thought, well, actually, I'm going to go and apply for that because a year before, our middle son was very ill, and he nearly died from the neonatal seizures. And had it not been for the ambulance crew that resuscitated him, he wouldn't be here today. So I thought, right, I'm going to see if I can give a little bit of something back. Clearly, they go to trauma.
Yeah, so that was wonderful. So that led you then into writing the books. You met Chris. Tell us, you met Chris. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I used to go on third manning shifts with the crews quite regularly. So that would involve spending the whole shifts with them, which could be night or day shifts, could be 12, 14 hours. It was quite intense.
Wow.
The first shift I went to was with a paramedic named Chris. And, in life, you just click with someone. We just clicked away. And, I think he had this image of a chaplain being someone who's miserable, but I think he was completely had a different perspective on it after the things I was saying and doing. But he shared with me an interesting story about how his daughter had been suffering with cancer from a very young age. And she'd gone on to write a book. She was 15 at the time. And this book was all about her battles with health. And that then inspired me to actually put together some books for the ambulance service. And then I thought, hang on, wait a minute, you've got Fireman Sam, but what have we got for the ambulance service?
Yes.
And they were born from there.
So what one did you write first then? I mean, which one did you start with and what age are they aimed at?
Paramedic Chris, which is the first episode.
Yeah.
That was based upon a hope school that we'd been to. And it got me thinking, we need to educate children about, the rights and wrongs of calling the emergency services.
Yes.
And there's a hope school as well.
Yeah.
That's the whole theme throughout the first episode.
Yes.
I've also, at the end, I've got the family reunited as well. So that was my first book. And all of the 4 books are aimed at children aged between 4 and 10 years of age.
Yes.
Though I'm told some older children like them as well, and younger, because the illustration is very good. I mean, I didn't do the illustrations, so I can say that.
But it's nice because they can be read to younger children, if parents are supporting them, just to talk about these sorts of things as well, which is really important. So a day in the life of a paramedic, that talks about the day and it gives the sort of how it works and what they get up to. And then what about Helping Hand? What's that book about?
Well, this one was based upon a call we went to on Christmas Day.
Right.
It was the first ever Christmas Day I'd ever volunteered out with them. And I loved it, apart from the one call. We went to an elderly gentleman in a high-rise flat, and he was all on his own and suffering from loneliness. And he shared about how his wife had died as well.
Yes.
We were the only people that saw him on Christmas Day. So it was heartbreaking to witness that, and I'm sure there's many other situations like that. But it got me thinking, I'm going to put this into a story of showing when someone's lonely.
Yes.
Do as well. So in the second book, it's got the food bank in there, and how that Fred, that was the patient, was referred to the food bank, and he was also then referred to some groups as well that supported him locally.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, isn't it? It's very sort of current topical stuff. And I think it will start sort of big conversations with little people, is how I like to say it, because these are springboards. I think books are wonderful ways to just start conversations. You're reading the story, you're talking about the characters, and you can open up all sorts of things for children, depending on their maturity, of course. And that's why I think, you know, what you've got to say in your books is so relevant to everybody. And then you've got A Sorry Bully. Tell us a bit about that one.
Well, this was quite an interesting one, because I won't go into too many details, but when I wrote that year, I'd actually been forced to resign from a job because my dad had sadly died. And I don't hide behind the fact I had my struggles and battles mentally after that,
Yes.
which quite often happens when anyone's in grief.
Of course.
It got me thinking, bullying's never acceptable. Thought, hang on, wait a minute. I went to a school and did a demonstration with a crew once.
Yes.
Do their story and show that actions have consequences, not just on one person, but on everybody else. So the one particular boy is pushed off the ambulance by the other boy, and as a result, the whole class aren't able to go and look round the ambulance. And the whole moral and the teaching of that is that actions have consequences on everybody.
Yeah, I love that. You see, there's a gentle moral story within it, isn't there, really? That, absolutely, you know, children can understand, that parents or teachers can discuss with them. Do you go into schools and read your books to children?
I've done, yes, yeah. I'm privileged and probably ahead there, because my wife works full time at our local primary school, so that's given me an advantage of contacts and going in. What I have done as well, and I'm booked in with a particular school in Cambridge, which is quite a distance from where we are. But instead of going in person, we're doing it via Zoom.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we all got used to that, didn't we, because of the pandemic and everything. You can do author visits now. You don't have to go in person if it's a bit further afield. So you do those. That's really interesting. And you interact with the kids. And if you go into a local school, do you have colouring or extra things that they can do after they've read the story?
Taken some. More recently, I found out a way of getting my front covers onto printouts where they can actually colour it in. So I'm going to be those around with me. What I did do, I took a whole load of model ambulances, because I've got model ambulances made up for the series. I took them in because the class I spoke to a number. There was a particular class I spoke to, and they were so well behaved. It struck me like how, bless them, this. I mean, we've got 3 young children ourselves, and I thought, wow, these children are really listening and asking questions. So I ambulances, model ambulances. But after that, I had a knock at our door by the teaching assistants, two teaching assistants rather, and they said, we're going to be really cheeky and ask if you can donate a number of your latest copies of your latest book and ambulances, because we're going out to Poland for help with the crisis out there. So I donated, I can't remember the exact amount, but somewhere around about 50 copies, because it was nothing compared to what they were doing.
Isn't that lovely that that you can be able to do that, and so that children can, discover your books further afield? And that's so lovely.
Children in distress,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because reading and stories are so important for children. They bring us together, don't they? Cuddling up, sitting on the sofa, or last thing at night when you do a bedtime story. And you can talk and teach them certain things, or you can just enjoy the story for what it is, if you don't have to get into it, if you don't really want to dig a bit deeper sometimes. So tell us about this latest one now, because this is the one I've read as well. Paramedic Chris and the Runaway Chicken. That's a funny one, isn't it?
First of all, I thought it would get the attention, the title, straight away, and it would get people questioning what on earth a paramedic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, first of all, the idea was born because Chris, the real paramedic Chris, he has got chickens, so I didn't randomly think of a chicken. It was born out of that idea. And then it was during the pandemic I wrote it. And when you read the book, I based it upon a patient that's suffering from anxiety.
Right.
And the paramedics are able to support him, and they also get the community together and they rally together.
Yes.
And this is the importance of what actually we should be teaching children and adults, actually, is what happens when we all pull together to support one another. I mean, on a personal note, I'm not saying this from my chaplain's experience, actually. I'm saying it from a personal experience. When my dad died, I relied upon my friends in the local community and family.
Of course.
And that's what we're thinking. We don't always do that. More and more. Because I know some people come to me and said, "Oh, I wished I felt more confident speaking to someone before," or "I haven't got the money to pay for a counsellor," for example, and there's waiting lists. And I thought, we can do more in society straight away by easing some of that pain. And it's one of the things throughout the whole series, which I really am passionate about, is mental health, partly experience, and professional as well. And I mean, there's been times when I've been on trucks and we've taken patients into hospital only to be discharged a few hours later. And you're thinking, hang on, they need more support. What's going on? They're only going to be in again a few hours later. So one of the visions I would have would be if the book's ever got big, which anyone hopes, I would love to be able to either give to an existing retreat centre supporting mental health, or even in the long term, open one as well. Because having travelled that journey myself, and my dad died, I've got a personal
first-hand experience of how tough it can be. And I think that's what makes your books authentic as well, because it comes from the heart and that you write from that point of view, and that can help children with compassion and empathy and talking about all these subjects, really. Have you got more plans? What's next?
Well, this is interesting because our oldest son's just turned 13.
I saw that on Twitter.
Bless his heart. We I won't go too much into it, but we took him bowling for his birthday. And I asked him what on earth he was doing, because he had a pen and paper. And he said, "I'm writing your next book." Absolutely brilliant. But actually, when I read the story, it was obviously it needs a bit of remixing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Actually, I was really taken aback by how good it was. But it actually follows on from Paramedic Chris Runaway Chicken. And I thought, wow, I could do this together with him. My first 4 books at the moment, they've obviously cost, so I'm conscious to him, we can't do this straight away. But write the manuscript, it's there, ready.
And it's ready when you're ready. And also the other side of it, perhaps I was talking to some other authors of suggesting that you sometimes can do ebooks as well now. People can download them, which are much cheaper to produce than, trying to get it all published and marketed and sent out. So are you going to give us a sneaky little peek of what that might be about?
Yeah, it's basically a paramedic Chris and Zara come off duty from that day, which was very unique. And there's an incident in the lift there, which then involves paramedic Chris and Zara. So it was his idea, not mine.
Well, that's not, I mean, actually, when you think of it, there are so many different situations that could lend themselves to a whole more of your books, because each little story has a theme and you could be talking about all sorts of things. And I like that you talk about community or loneliness or the elderly. And that does talk and teach children just gently through reading a story about those sort of very important values, I think, really. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what a volunteer chaplain does? I was very interested in that, just briefly.
Yeah, fundamentally, first of all, the most important thing is a listening ear. That's the most important actually thing. But actually, there is an art to listening. When I first took on the role, I had to do a bit of training, of course.
Of course.
And of course, my wife thought it was hilarious because I like talking.
People find it funny that I do coaching because I like a chat. But when I'm working, I sit back and I ask the questions and let people give me their own answers.
And this is exactly how chaplaincy works. You're listening.
Yes, yes.
Pastorally supporting and you're there. But I personally went out with them quite a lot. So I felt if I'm going to be doing this role, I need to put myself in their shoes.
Yes.
I found it quite patronising in the past when people would say, "I know how you feel," when actually they don't.
Yes. Yeah.
And I thought, actually, I'm going to actually put myself into their shoes to see actually what this involves.
Yes.
That is part of the role there. But
Yeah.
it's also being on call to them. They need that person to chat to. They do have a wellbeing hub as well.
Yes.
There straight away. So our station where I served is only at the back of where we live, basically. So, and we live right near the hospital. So we were literally based in the perfect position.
Yes.
Now, though I've stepped down, I'm still friendly with lots of paramedics. And so a close friend of mine who I worked with, he quite often pops in after shifts, and I'm ended up making him omelets when he's absolutely shattered.
So it's still ongoing, isn't it, then, that you are using your experiences, but also there's going to be a whole host of them, I think, of different stories that could come from this. Tell us about your books on Audible. I noticed they're on Audible.
Yes, that was done actually during the pandemic. I did a bit of networking online, and the group, and there happened to be a narrator there, and we got talking, and she put the series together for me. So actually, we can run this alongside it. So I actually, talking about going into a school, I did one on Zoom during the pandemic, and the school said to me, "We've just listened to your books," which took me by surprise.
Lovely.
Preview first.
Yeah.
And actually, to be honest, one of the reasons I've done it, and I don't hide from this fact, when I was a child, I struggled academically, but it wasn't until I started getting into reading, my academic side started to develop. And I thought that was because I was actually in the 90s listening to cassette tapes.
Yes, because some children love to listen, don't they? They don't always want to read, particularly reluctant readers and sometimes reluctant boy readers. So the idea that they were on Audible, I thought, is wonderful. So where can people buy your books? Tell us where they are so people watching this can go and get some.
Sure. The best thing first of all is to look at my website, timparsons.co.uk.
Yes.
Links on there on Amazon and Waterstones for the paperbacks.
Yes.
Audio books are on there as well. They are actually free if people have got Audible accounts or sign up for a 30-day free trial. So I always spread that one in as well.
Yes.
More recently, if anyone's into TikTok, which I thought I never would get into, TikTok shop stocking signed copies of my latest book.
Wow.
beeps.co.uk. So I found TikTok's been a game changer in the sense of getting my word out there.
I better go. I better get on there. It's the only social platform I'm not on.
All right. Now, you have to have 1,000 followers plus to go live. In fact, I'm no expert and I'm never playing.
But it's a lovely way to reach younger parents, perhaps, too, that's their preferred platform, so that they'll be interested in finding your books there. So tell us what's your name on social media then on the TikTok?
So on TikTok, it's Paramedic Chris Kids Books.
Okay.
Now, the reason that is because I tried putting Paramedic Chris Children's Books, but it's too long wording.
Yes.
So another way of wording it so I could condense it down. You've got people all over the world, so that would make sense to put it like that. What I was going to say was what I'm planning to do. But because I'm a great believer in supporting other authors. I'm a great believer in that. I'm thinking about starting a little bit of a course myself of just teaching what I've learned so far. The do's and don'ts of what I'm learning as I go along, quite frankly, on this.
Of course.
I've got in with a particular TikTok place called My Farm 1981, and they're a farm up north, and they've got animals that are specific to supporting mental health, and they've built up a community, and they've now got my latest book, and they read them as well. So one another.
So it's a collaborative thing, isn't it? Because your books and all of our books, you know, as an author myself, they go out into unusual places that we don't always think of. So tell us then, what are you on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well?
Yeah, so Facebook, I'm under Paramedic Chris.
Yes.
And then Twitter is @Chaplain Parsons. I probably will look to change that at some point. And Instagram is Paramedic Chris Kids Books.
Lovely. So people can go and find them. They can go and read them. They're on the Sue Atkins Book Club page. So if you go to my website and put, go underneath the book club, your books will be there. And it's been a real pleasure to speak with you and to hear, what inspired you and to hear what's coming next. They really are lovely books for children and families to read together. So thank you so much, Tim, for giving me your time today.
Thank you.